Decision Diaries.
Welcome to Decision Diaries. Today on Decision Diaries, we are going to talk about a very big decision, the decision to homeschool your children. And so I have a very special guest, Liz Zern, who honestly makes it look easy, but I know it is not. You're so super organized. So welcome to Decision Diaries. And
Thank
as
you.
always, I really love to start from the beginning of I don't think in my, I've known you for a little while. I don't think that, you, as soon as you had children, envision yourself doing this. So I really want to hear the story that kind of led up to this big decision.
Yeah. So, you are correct in your assumption. I literally, told people years ago, I've known lots of people that have homeschooled, right? I have been involved in like lots of different ministries through my church. So that automatically lends itself to knowing people who homeschool. And I told a friend a while ago, it would take an act of God for me to homeschool my children. There is no way. Like, more power to you, but not happening. Like, I can't. And then 2020 came, and there's my act of God.
That act of God, yeah.
So in 2020, my daughter was in kindergarten. My son Chance was in second grade. And then I have an older kid who was a rising freshman in high school. And so, we all go on spring break, the world erupts, and we end up home. And they were doing Zoom school. Like, they were, learning on Zoom, or sort of learning on Zoom. And I started looking at their stuff that they were learning at school. And I was like, what the hell is happening? Like, what is going on here? And my daughter cried every single day. Every single day that they were doing Zoom school, she cried. She couldn't get online. She couldn't talk to her friends. She couldn't see anyone. She didn't know what was happening. The teacher was going too fast. And I started looking at like where she was progressively in kindergarten. And I had some concerns prior to like everything happening. And I had talked to her kindergarten teacher and said, like, she's not reading at the level that the boys were reading. Well, all students are different. Well, but she's really falling behind. Like, she couldn't even write her name. Her name is Scarlett. She could not write her name properly. And I was like, I'm a little concerned. Like, she's not spelling very well. And I realized she's only in kindergarten, but like, these are the experiences I've had with my boys. And obviously every kid's different. I've heard all that before. I know.
Right.
Yes,
right. I hear you.
But I still had some concerns, and I had addressed them with the teacher, and she just kind of was like, she's doing fine. She's doing fine. She's doing fine. Her class had like 20 kids in it. She was really overwhelmed. And Zoom school wasn't working. So then I was like, well, what do I do? And then, we live in Florida. So things were looking like everybody was going to go back to school starting in that 2020 to 21 school year in the fall. Over the summer, I started really like searching my heart and what was best for my kids. I started looking up, and then I was like down the rabbit hole of homeschool.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
And there are so many different ways to homeschool that it was like really overwhelming. And I was having anxiety attacks. I was waking up in the middle of the night. I was just freaking out. Like, what am I going to do with these kids? And I'm not a very anxiety ridden person in general. I kind of am like, I have peace. Like, I feel like I would say, I hate the word religious, but I would say I'm a religious person. Like, I do believe that God has a plan for our lives, and whatever he has planned for us, if we align ourselves with him, that he will guide our steps.
Right.
And,
right.
And because I believe that, I felt this like, God's going to give me some peace as soon as I have the right thing in front of me. And I just kept praying, like, give me the right answer. Give me the right, like, open that door and slam the other doors. Like, just so I have clarity. And that was my prayer all that summer, like, give me clarity. And I came to the decision with a friend that I was going to homeschool. And my friend was at the same sort of crossroads. She had kids the same ages as my kids. And she was like, I don't know what to do with these kids, but I know that I'm not sending them back to public school to maybe have them come back 2 weeks later when COVID goes crazy again, or we don't know what's going to happen in public school. And her son, who was also in kindergarten in 2020, was also not thriving in public school.
Well, so what's interesting is that especially the kindergartners is the masks and the plastic shields and everything that they were sort of returning to was taking away the learning experience. So if there's ever time that you started questioning the educational system, I really think that was, the time
Yeah.
because several of them, as we've moved along, we've discovered that they're having some social problems, and so
There's
why
some social
not?
problems. There's a lot of educational gap, especially in those COVID, they call them COVID kindergartners. So those COVID kindergartners are having like learning gaps. They're having reading gaps, math gaps. They're having a lot of things because they missed that last quarter, that really pivotal corner of kindergarten, when you take all the stuff you learned the prior 6 months or whatever, and you're putting them all together and it all comes together and the puzzle works. And they missed all that. So because they were trying to figure out how to use Zoom. And
Right.
so,
Right.
my kids are very computer savvy, but we're not able to do what they needed to do for school. Now, backtracking just a little bit, my son Chance, who was in second grade at the time, he was already leaps and bounds ahead. So right now he's in sixth grade. He's doing high school math as a homeschooler. In second grade, the teacher was like, honestly, I don't have anything for him. He's already gone through all the standards for second, third, and fourth grade. So I really don't have anything for him. You could try printing out some fraction sheets and have him work on that, or do a Rubik's Cube or something. There was nothing for him. And I was so from March till end of May, he's just supposed to do nothing. What are we saying here? He needs something. And so that was on the other side of the spectrum, where I've got my daughter who's struggling. I had my son who was struggling in a whole different way because he was bored out of his mind.
Right.
And so I was like, there has to be something more. There has to be something more. And then I had my high schooler who decided he also wanted to stay home. So he lasted about 2 weeks as a homeschool student. I think that he was just so over it with me, and he did not do well in the virtual school setting. And so he went back to public school. So even within your same family, you might have kids that have completely different needs. You may homeschool one and you may send other ones to a brick and mortar school. So what's interesting about homeschooling is it's not like a one size fits all, even within a family.
Yeah. So to me, that's really interesting. First of all, kudos to you for acknowledging that and not, forcing okay, the whole family is homeschooling and that's that, and you're just going to have to deal with it. So kudos for you for that. But also, I can just imagine, as you mentioned, it's not a one size fits all. So how do you manage these different programs? How are you able to do that? I'm amazed.
It's really not as magical as it seems. Homeschooling, I think, when we were coming up, right, was weird people wearing a lot of denim. Mom didn't cut her hair. There was a lot of bangs, a lot of maybe farm animals involved. Although
there are farm animals. I
raised chickens with my homeschooler.
Okay, yeah. So it seems to me, just by looking at Instagram and a few people that I know,
don't look at Instagram. That's such a bad picture.
Yeah, if you homeschool, it seems like chickens are part of the chickens and butterflies
package deal. You get chickens. You get your starter pack of curriculum that comes with some baby chickens. No, that's not true.
It seems like it though.
But it is it's so. I think that was the old school. In my head, my vision of homeschoolers was the Duggars. You got to have 20 kids, a little homestead, definitely chickens, and a lot of denim. That was homeschoolers.
That was homeschooling.
But so when I started, let me backtrack just a little bit, because when I really decided that I was going to homeschool, I had found this curriculum, and it's called Gather Round Curriculum, or Gather Round Homeschool. And there are a lot of different types of curriculums. So it could be anything from like, and you'll hear a lot of buzzwords like within the homeschool community. I'm trying to find my little slide on it. So there's Charlotte Mason, there's unschooling, there's hybrid or umbrella schools, and there's co-ops, and then there's unit studies. So let me explain those a little bit. Like Charlotte Mason is more like your classic education. So like there's a group called Classical Conversations. It's a really big homeschooling community here in Jacksonville, especially, but like all over the place. So CC is how it's referred to in the homeschooling.
Oh, okay.
Homeschooling has its own language. So yeah, so CC, they are a great organization. There's a lot of like classical education, a lot of memorization, a lot of classic literature. They're very like strongly literature based, because if you're proficient in reading and literature, it kind of moves over into the sciences and maths because you're able to like understand all the questions that it's asking you. It's a great model for homeschooling. Unschooling is another school of thought where like you literally like it's child-led kind of Montessori style, where you try to figure out what is your kid really interested in and you gear all your lessons toward that. So if your kids really love Harry Potter, then science becomes potions, and math might become like arithmancy or whatever. Like you're going to tailor your education to like things your kids are really interested in. And there it gets really great because you've got kids that really love farming, because I can't get chickens out of my head now. But like, and you might go visit a farm. You might let them work on a farm. You might let them, go to a farming or tractor store and like ask a bunch of questions or like research something. So they're still learning and understanding a lot of things, but it's more like interest-led and child-led. So unschooling is another option. They still have to learn their basic math, science, social studies, and English, but you're tailoring those things toward like more of their kid-led interests. Umbrella schools or hybrid schools are a great option for a lot of families. That's where like you have a drop-off program where you've hired tutors. A lot of families come together and they usually these umbrella schools are accredited in some way, and they have like classes that they offer. Your kids might go to class, or sometimes the parents teach the class. You might have a parent that used to be a doctor, now they're homeschooling their kids, or used to be, an IT professional that decided to be a stay-at-home mom. So you have a lot of really well-educated people who want to combine their educational expertise and help let these kids learn for a couple hours a day. But you're still under these umbrella schools, you as the parent are still the homeschool teacher. So that's something that people really need to understand, is that ultimately, no matter what methodology of homeschooling you use, the responsibility is yours to educate your own children. So if you're using tutors, great, but you still need to know what they're teaching, and you still need to be a part of the decision of what they're teaching. So it gives the parents a lot of freedom to understand, like, my kids are going to learn this, this, and this, but also I'm learning it along with them, which is really awesome.
Because I wanted to talk about a couple of those. Okay, there's two more.
So there's two more. So co-ops, my kids are in a co-op. Co-ops are similar to umbrella schools or hybrid schools, except that they're not accredited. And we're kind of like getting these teachers, all of the teachers that are co-op are certified teachers. Most of them are certified teachers that either taught at the public school or the private school. They decided they didn't want to be in that environment anymore. And the kids go and they are with kids their own age, but also with kids of all ages. So we've got kindergarten through 6th grade. Sometimes they're all together, sometimes they're not. I actually teach a cooking class at the homeschool, at the co-op. And so I'm teaching 2nd through 5th graders how to do everything from, it's basically like a home ec class. I'm teaching everything from like table setting and how to cook. I'm teaching them basic cooking skills. And it's once a week for about an hour. And so sometimes they're parent-led co-ops. Ours specifically has teachers that are teaching ELA, math, science, and social studies. And we go 3 days a week from 8 to 1. And then they have an optional elective. So cooking's my elective that I'm teaching. And then we have unit studies. And that's actually how we started out. Our family did a unit study. We had what's known as a micro co-op. And we only had one other family, sometimes two, that we did co-op days with. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we met together in somebody's kitchen and we did our unit studies together. And Gather Round is the curriculum we used. Gather Round is a really awesome curriculum. There's another one called The Good and the Beautiful that is a similar style, and it's a unit of study. So for 1 month, you study botany, and all of the lessons, you have a science lesson, an ELA lesson, maybe some math and some social studies. So you'll do geography. You'll learn about where like different plants grow. You'll learn science. What are different types of plants? How do you dissect a plant? Why do some plants grow in colder climates? What do you need to have a plant go? You learn about photosynthesis. You learn about all these different things under this one unit study. Then next month, you move on to another unit study. We did all of the continents. We did botany. We did food and farming. We just did all kinds of space. We did.
You're making me want to go to homeschool. So
you can be in my class, Lynn. You can be in my class.
I'm gonna start joining your classes.
Yeah.
No, so when you mentioned all of those, there's a couple of them that I was like, how, I'm picturing myself and I'm picturing my boys. And I'm thinking to myself, if I would have homeschooled, which one of those, really would have landed with them? Yeah. And I will tell you, so I had, what do you do? Like I had one child that was waking up in the middle of the night and watching World War II videos in color. And then he was,
he's a homeschooler for sure.
Yeah. And he was going to the library and he was, getting all of the books in the library, all about World War II. And then he was really getting into the battles and, as you mentioned before, the geography and all of that. And so I really could have seen that whole theme thing completely working for him. Now his brother was on a completely different theme. They're only 2 years apart. Yeah. But so do you have like these different, it sounds like, if you were to pick that style, you would kind of have these different tracks or, you put everybody on the same theme. How does that work?
So with unit studies, it's actually kind of awesome because like when you're doing a unit, we kind of went through as a family and said, which of these units excite you and make you excited? And they would pick a couple. And then I would pick the rest and be like, these are the ones we're going to do. And these are the ones that you guys can get excited about that. And then, so each unit had different things that made them unique, but like I have one, and I have different kids. I have one kid that's really math and science kid. And I have another that's a reading and social studies kid. And, so when we did each unit, sometimes we would do science experiments that went along with whatever the lesson of the day was. And even if it's not a science heavy unit, like the crossing continents, they weren't super science heavy, but you can make lessons tailored around what your kids like. When we were doing crossing continents and we were doing Hawaii in North America, we were doing a lesson on Hawaii. And we did a volcano model and we did different decisions, like how can we make it erupt bigger? How can we make it erupt smaller? What's the science behind volcanoes? So even though we're studying mostly a geography unit, it really kind of goes with like whatever you want to add into it. So the way homeschooling works is you get your curriculum as a parent. Okay. And then I would look through it.
Yeah. What's included in this curriculum?
So in the curriculum for unit, for Gather Round specifically, you get a teacher guide that is literally what you read to your kids. But what's really great about Gather Round is that the lessons are tailored for, like, their work is tailored to their grade level. So Chance did a little bit higher level work than Scarlett did, but their pages were very similar. So they had an ELA page, they had a social studies page, and they had a science page, and then math is separate. So we did math with a different curriculum. And I think everybody does that. Like they have all their major subjects and the math is a totally separate thing. And we used Singapore math was our curriculum. It was great. And we used Saxon. We use Saxon math now.
And you subscribe to these or you buy these one packet at a time?
Yeah, so they're books. They're you can subscribe to different things. There's all kinds of different curriculums. You just have to like kind of look through it when you're first starting out and decide like which one looks like it would be really great for your kid. For streamlining it for families that have multiple kids, like I tried to find things that looked like they would be great for both of them. And if you had obviously more units for different kids, Chance right now takes math through FLVS Flex because he's so far ahead in math that he's doing high school level math. And so I have tried to figure out the best route, and it looked like FLVS Flex was probably it for him. And he is doing great. He's got an A in Algebra 1 honors. And a 97, he says.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
He chimed in, and I'm watching him in the background, and he is very focused. So, also was there ever a unit that just kind of fell flat?
Yes. Yes, there was. There was one, and it was
right?
this year actually. So we did chemistry this year, and some of the experiments were just kind of not fun. And some of the stuff in the curriculum was a little more difficult than my daughter was really able to handle, because it was a lot of like very high up science level stuff, and more like middle school level. And because she was bored and Chance was bored, and honestly, I was bored, I was like, okay, we're going to pare this down a little, because they were also doing all of their co-op work too, because now they're in like a big co-op, and they have science at co-op. So I was like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to learn the periodic table. We're going to learn a little bit about the elements, but the rest of this stuff is at this point busy work, and we're not doing it. And that's really what's beautiful about homeschooling. If it's not working for you, don't do it. I don't have a checklist of things like I have to do. I have things that I print out the state standards for each subject at the beginning of the school year. I look through them and I say, is my kid meeting this standard for the school? No, not all homeschoolers do that. They just want to make sure they're making progress. Florida actually is a really homeschool friendly state. So there's not
interesting.
There's not really a whole lot that you have to do to prove that you're like doing all this stuff. You can do enough that they're progressing to the next level, or you can do a whole lot. I'm extra, so I do a whole lot. So, and my kids sometimes are like, it's a lot, Mom, it's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking a lot about, I mean, obviously, when you're interested in the subject matter, and you and I are kind of the same way, is when we're interested in the subject matter, we can go deep. We could go deep. And then our passions come out, and we're just like, oh, this is awesome. We're learning. Look at this. And, but there's another side that everybody always brings up. And when I was looking at, just kind of some fun homeschooling Instagram memes, they were talking about experiences that, within sort of a standard setting, these children are receiving an experience of, I need to follow rules, and I have to raise my hand, and I have to I want to say memorize and regurgitate, like memorize. And
let me ask you a question though.
It's not sinking in, right? It's not sinking in as.
So when you were in school and you had to memorize and regurgitate, do you remember most of what you learned?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And so that's what I was kind of seeing out there, is that it's a get out of the office. We call that in the business world, we call that, nothing important ever happens in the office. It's like, get out of the office, get out there with your customers. And with homeschooling, what I was seeing a theme of was get these kids actually experiencing things, as opposed to just sort of sitting there and being told things.
Right.
And so talk to me about how you get out.
Yeah. So when we did North America, when we did Gather Round with our micro co-op, we did a field trip once a week.
Okay.
It went with whatever unit we were learning. So when we did North America, we went over to the park, and I said, okay, gather a bunch of sticks and leaves, and you guys are going to go in the creek and you're going to build a dam. Because we were finding out, like, beavers build dams in Canada, and what is a dam and how does it work? And whoever could build the best dam in that little stream maybe would get a prize. Those kids came home muddy and tired and exhausted and knowing why beavers were building dams. So they were experiencing what it looks like. And also they were learning about leave no trace. So wherever they go, if they do some activity, they also know you have to break apart that dam because we don't want to mess up the ecosystem that we're doing. So they're learning a lot about caring for their environment and being careful with like our resources that were given to us. And we did a beach cleanup day when we learned about oceans. The beach cleanup day, we happened to find this huge jellyfish while we were on the beach, and we got to like look at it. And then we went home and we were like, okay, let's look up. So you can look up online, like a dissection of a jellyfish. We actually dissected crayfish during that ocean theme. We've done all kinds of like hands-on things to help us to like learn more in depth. Chance got really interested in medicine and science during some of our stuff. So we had bought him this like little kit for Christmas to learn how to do sutures. And I have a friend who's a doctor, and I was like, hey, can you come teach my 9-year-old how to run sutures? And he was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. So if you ever need stitches, Chance can run them for you.
Wow, that is, well, and it's also life skills. So, the other thing that I really liked when I looked up, researching and everything, was I saw some ideas of going out and do random acts of kindness. And, I think that is one of those things that, all parents should do. And so if you can teach your children, or you can take your children during the day out of a classroom, going out there and, like you said, doing things in nature, but also going out there and doing random acts of kindness. I thought that was like a great homeschooling day. I would have loved that.
Yeah, absolutely. So our co-op during December, they went over to the elderly residents over here in Jacksonville, and they sang songs to them, and they like talked to them, and they just visited with the elderly that are in these like homes, residential homes, and they just had a great time with them. We do service projects. So the beach cleanup was one. We've done things for the military. We went over to Canines for Warriors and like did a little tour of their facility so that we could learn about, PTSD and what that organization is doing. And then you follow it up with like, hey, how can we help organize? How can we do something for this group? Well, we can take all of our towels and not dirty, but like old linens, and donate them because they need blankets and towels at these places that are helping animals. There's so many opportunities for service in our communities that we don't need. We can go to St. Augustine and serve at a homeless shelter, and we can go do something really, really tiny, easy, go get $5 worth of quarters at the bank, and then put quarters on the carts at Aldi. So everybody has a quarter when they go in. So
that's a really good, you're so creative. So
just little things that you can think of, and you can involve your kids like, hey, what do you love? What are you really excited about? Are you excited about animals? Well, hey, the Humane Society has a reading program where you can go and you can read to animals who are in shelters until they get adopted. So that's one. You can go do the Aldi thing. You can just, maybe go buy some $5 Starbucks cards and give them to police officers as they're sitting on their patrol or whatever. Like, there's just really tiny little acts of kindness that go a long way in building your kids' character, and really helping them to like figure out what are they passionate about and what are they in love with. And, one thing that we're going to do next year actually is called a passion project, where they get to pick one thing, and all during the whole school year, they're going to work on their passion project. So at the end of the year, they'll have their big service thing, and it might be homelessness, or it might be, I have a passion for food insecurity. I grew up in a home that, my mom was a single mom. I lived with my grandparents back and forth, and food insecurity was always an issue for me. So I try to, make sure now I'm maybe a little bit of a food hoarder. And as you know, I used to be a private chef prior to homeschooling.
Right.
And I still do private chef things, but just not like I used to. And so I want my kids to find something that they're really passionate about and that they love, and that they're going to like go out into the world and put their little stamp on what that looks like. So my daughter loves animals. her passion project will probably be something with animals. She loves dolphins and sea creatures, so she'll probably do a beach cleanup or something along those lines. She just really loves that thing in the
Well,
world.
so you get, you get your ideas from your children. You
Yeah,
also have some, things that you're sort of passionate about, and that helps, right? If the teacher's passionate, the
yeah,
students are passionate. And I've noticed that just in a standard school system, right?
true. Yeah, yeah,
My son comes home, he's excited about World War II because he has a passionate history teacher who
yeah.
is excited about World War II and, takes guitar, same thing. So you've got all of these multiple passions, multiple subjects. And, I'm so ADD. I don't know, I would have this plethora of ideas and it would almost become this pile that I would collapse underneath. How in the world do you keep your mind straight?
Yeah,
Or do
so
you have other people?
I do have other people. Number one thing you need to do is find a community. That's number one. If you're going to homeschool, you got to find a community. It could be one other family. It could be, I definitely recommend co-ops, even just once a week. It gives your kids like some time to, go be with other kids their age. A big thing, and you probably saw this in your research, is like, how are you going to socialize your kids? They will be in
Oh,
this.
so yeah. Well, that was one of the ones I have down on my list that we
Yeah.
have to talk
So
about, right?
socialization, my kids. So if you go out right now, go to any park, you will see kids sitting around the park bench looking at memes on their phones
Right.
and not really socializing. You have kids that can't, like kids my son's age, he's in middle school, so 6th grade, can't order their own food at a restaurant because they don't know how to speak to people and they feel nervous and they don't want to talk to people. My kids are not, no. If you want something, you better ask for it. You better ask for it politely and you better figure out how to get it. So my daughter can advocate for herself if she needs extra time with something, and she can speak to adults. She can speak to children. They know how to speak to special needs kids. I don't, we get to be around people of all types, all beliefs, all faiths, all colors, all everything, because we're not stuck in a classroom with our same little cohort of upper middle class white kids in St. Johns County. We're
Right.
able to go to our co-op that has, yes, okay, let me back that up, because we do go to a Christian co-op. So our co-op does teach biblical principles. They do take a Bible class at co-op. So they are learning with other Christian kids. However, when we go out into like do our service projects, or we go to different parts of the county or even the state, we are definitely interacting with people from all different walks of life. And during their Bible class, they're learning to defend their faith, if that's what they believe, but also like why we believe what we believe, and then what other people believe. I'm not sheltering my kids from
Right.
reality. And I think that that's like a misconception that people have, is that like, oh, we just don't want our kids to learn any bad stuff, and so we're putting them in this bubble. Actually, what's happening is like, I am able to teach my kids. My kids know all of the societal things that are being taught, but I'm the one that taught that to them. I'm the one that explained it to them, and I'm the one that has given them the information in an age appropriate way. So another part of homeschooling is there are things right now that are being taught in schools that I don't necessarily think are age appropriate for my
Right.
4th grader. And so that was a part of it, was just like, and it got reiterated because my high schooler, when he went to high school, the first 2 years of high school were brutal for him. And he was not homeschooled. He's never been homeschooled. He lasted 2 weeks in virtual school in 2020, and that was it. But he went to high school and he was bullied to the point of needing professional help. He was to the point where he was almost suicidal. And I was like, what is happening? And he was like, these kids are so mean. They are calling him slurs. He's autistic. So they are, and he's high function autistic. So he's in normal classes. He's in honors classes. He does great, but it was hard for him to go to school. And I was going to pull him out. And then I said, do you want to be homeschooled? I can pull you back out. And he was like, no, I feel like I need to get through this. And I'm curious about like what in society has made us believe that bullying, hiding under chairs to make sure that we're not having like guns in the classroom, like
Right.
the sexual exploitation conversation, like all of the things that are happening right now that I don't want my kids to, like, just let them be kids for a little bit, like just a little bit, because they'll we have a saying in my family, like, you're going to lose some of your kid. So whenever my kids ask me a question that's like a big question, I will not lie to them.
Exposing children to too much. It's
Yeah.
amazing to me what what is going on with that. And obviously, with technology, and I'm in tech, so
Yeah.
it's like I love technology, and then sometimes I just really want to take them out to
Yeah.
the woods and start over, and just be present. So there's a lot that you're competing with, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I
think it's
imagine.
important to like put up your boundaries with your kids and like let them know what but there's no subject really that's off limits with my kids. Not all parents are like that. Not all homeschool, not all public school, whatever. I mean, but I think that it's important for them to feel like they can come to me with questions and we can explore those answers together. And the number one thing that I want my kids to kind of walk away from anything that I've taught them with is that no matter what, if you disagree with somebody on religion or on any kind of like social issue, that you walk away with it with them feeling like you've given them a place of love. You've come to them from a place of love. So you're going to love somebody and you're going to be kind to them, and you may disagree with them and you can stand strong in your belief, but still love people in their own beliefs. So I think that's my hope, is that my kids walk away from any conversation feeling like they've left a space for loving people and not like feeling like they have to, it's not us against them. People are supposed to
Right,
be in
right. Well, what
unity.
about, you know, we all know that, not all people get along. And at one point when I was stay-at-home mom, and I was, over the moms club, and the moms club got, really large. So we started getting, all kinds of different people, a lot of people in one room, a lot of kids in one room. And it seemed like there was sort of a tipping point on size as to when, conflicts start to occur. So are your homeschool co-ops kept to sort of a smaller size so that
Yes.
everybody is kind of gets along? Everybody is of, I don't want to say a like mind, but there's a certain standard. And then have you ever, experienced where, somebody did not fit in
Yeah.
that? And
Yeah,
you
like
had to.
even within our like little tiny co-op with two families, there was conflict that had to
Yeah.
arise where we had to
Yeah.
say like, okay, we're all we have. So we have
Right?
to figure out, which is a great life skill.
It
You have
is.
to
It
learn
is.
how to resolve conflict with people that you work with and people that you're going to do life with. And you may not always agree. So my family is non-denominational Christian. The family that we did co-op with is Catholic. So there were some disagreements biblically about what we were teaching. So what we did was I taught my beliefs. My friend Sarah taught her beliefs. And we were like, and now you guys have to figure out what you believe because we can't make you believe it. So we gave them the opportunity to like decide what they wanted to believe, but we gave them all of the information. And I think that that's like what's great about homeschooling too, is like if they want more information, we can get it for you. But I don't try to like overly filter what my kids are going to learn about. If they have a question, we're going to learn about it. And it gives me an opportunity to do that because the work, it's funny because I was talking to one of the teachers at the co-op and she used to teach in public school. And she was like, the work that they do in 8 hours at public school could really boil down to about 3 hours of solid working if they
Yeah.
cut
Yeah.
out all of the like other stuff that they don't really have to do and the changing classes and the going to PE and the blah, blah, blah. Now we go to PE. There's a homeschool PE class that they can go to. There's meetups. They can go to parks. My kids both do, my homeschoolers do cross country and track and field in a club group. My daughter took homeschool tumbling. So there's the businesses are starting to pick up on the fact that homeschooling has exponentially increased in this state and in this country. I think,
Oh, absolutely. And I think that some of your famous homeschoolers that actually came from Florida. I mean, obviously, I'm going to throw Tim Tebow out there,
Tebow.
but right.
Everybody talks about Tebow.
So, and everybody's like, gosh, what did that, we all want the curriculum from that mom because, he is just a very nice person.
Yeah.
And then, went on to be very successful and caring and, did a high school sport. Are you encouraged to put your children into a standard school for sports? Is that something that the homeschoolers are encouraged to do? Or are you guys kind of creating your own sports association within the homeschooling community?
Yeah, both. A lot of homeschoolers in high school also participate in whatever school they're zoned for. They can participate in sports there, any sport that they want to. If you don't want them to go there, there's plenty of intramural sports or stuff like that. If you have a really talented athlete, you should probably get them in with their public school so that they can get some attention if you're expecting them to play sports in college or whatever. But you can attract attention outside of public school if you have a really
I guess with all the travel ball and all of that. But there's, I guess that's what also has changed, right? It's because now a lot of these sports have been, sort of privatized and travel ball and some of these scholarship and recruiters are looking more at those travel teams as opposed to what they used to do, which was, find them at a local high school. So in a way, that's also benefited homeschoolers and
so these schools, we still pay taxes into the public school system, and so those taxes are covered for a lot of the use of sports equipment and facility equipment in the public school. So they're absolutely allowed to use those things, and they're entitled to use them because we pay for them. And most of the schools are still getting money for homeschool students, even though our students aren't attending school there. So,
I thought you can't opt out. And can you write off your homeschooling on your taxes?
So we have not done that. I think you can. There is also a scholarship available in Florida right now called the Parent Empowerment Scholarship, or PEP is what it's called. It's through Step Up for Students, and they are giving scholarships that are privately funded to homeschool students. It helps them cover some of their tuition costs. It covers things like PE. It covers some curriculum costs, stuff like that. If you have tuition at a co-op, then it might help cover that. It covers some of the expenses to help families to make that choice. If they decide that homeschooling is the right option for them, then you may tell your listeners that they can visit stepupforstudents.org and they can look up information about the scholarship. Both of my kids received that scholarship. So this year was the first year that we've done the Step Up for Students scholarship. And you just submit receipts for the stuff that you feel like is educationally appropriate for your kid. And it has opened up some doors for some really cool things for, we got a microscope from our scholarship. Yay. So we can
microscope. Oh yeah. I'm going to come over to your house and see what you guys are doing with
so we do have a room in our house.
I did get to see the butterflies. The butterflies were great.
Oh yeah. We raised butterflies. I didn't submit the butterflies, but you look for things. Homeschooling doesn't have to be expensive either. You get your curriculum and then you can tailor whatever adventures or art projects or crafts or anything that you think is good. You can kind of tailor that to whatever budget you have. So it doesn't have to be like these big, huge events. Sometimes people think like, oh, I can't possibly homeschool because it's so expensive. And you would have to pay for, you get that big long list with all the Clorox wipes and the paper towels. A few $100 per kid, and you're going to have to buy books for your kids anyway. You can buy them and have them at home. Just coincidentally, I have a list of famous people who were homeschooled, at least for part of their education.
Okay. Let's rattle them off. Okay.
All right. Serena and Venus Williams, Condoleezza Rice, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Michelle Kwan, Taylor Swift, Tim Tebow, Jonas Brothers, Whoopi Goldberg, Emma Watson, Billie Eilish, Abraham Lincoln, J.R.R. Tolkien, Simone Biles, Thomas Edison, Sandra Day O'Connor, Ryan Gosling, and Justin Timberlake.
Wow. Wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Well, a lot of entertainers in there probably also because they needed all that
And a lot of Olympic
flexibility.
athletes too. Athletes are often homeschooled, at least for part of their education, because they've have to dedicate so much time to their craft or whatever. Part of the reason we were going to allow Jack to do virtual school was because he gets up at like 5:45 every morning to go to track practice, and he is number 11 in the state in cross country. And so we were like, maybe he would want to try homeschooling so that he can sleep in a little longer and then be refreshed when he's starting his schoolwork. He ended up doing modified schedule at his high school, so he didn't need to homeschool after all. But it was just giving options is always a good thing.
Well, so I want to talk about you and what it takes. I think it's really important for you to kind of assess the skills and the person. How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep yourself motivated? How do you keep yourself organized? What are some of the characteristics of somebody who is capable of doing this? And I'm going to put myself out there and say that I think I would probably have to be on some medication plus maybe wine at the end of the night. Like I enjoy talking, obviously. I enjoy organizing. It's great, and I love all of the learning. That is awesome too. But I do feel like at some point I would maybe suffer from a little burnout, or there might be a couple of days where I just don't have what it takes to be entertaining. I don't have it. What happens when you get sick?
Yeah.
You don't have a substitute teacher.
I don't have a substitute. So that happens, right? And no matter how much you love your job, there are days where you're like, I don't want to do this today, right? In any job.
Right. In any job. That's true.
So
your son's like, is it today, Mom?
It's not today. Actually, so my son has COVID right now. And he is still doing his schoolwork right now because he doesn't actually feel terrible. He's actually on the upswing, so he's feeling a lot better. He's fever free. So I think we're going to retest him and see if he's clear now. But
I'm almost done.
You're almost done with school?
I'm almost done.
Oh, he's almost done with school. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. He's almost done with his school.
Wow. So what will he spend the rest of his day doing? And what will you spend?
So yeah, he can
doing?
do
What's
once
your day
he's
look like?
once he's done with his schoolwork. Normally he's not done this quickly. But he can plow through pretty quickly, and he did a little extra in the homeschool world. They call it double up. So you can double up your work for one day if you want to take the day off the next day. That's a good way to like take a day off if you need a breather. You can double up your work, or if you just need a day off, like say I woke up this morning with a migraine. If it was not a co-op day, I might say to my kids, like, hey guys, listen, I have a migraine. You're going to do whatever you can do. They'll usually have like their 20 minutes of reading. They don't need me for that. Their math, they don't actually need me for that either, because both of them are doing things. Chance takes his on virtual school, and Scarlett's doing something right now that I've already taught her the lesson. So she's just doing like practice work. So she doesn't need me for that. So I could say like, do the stuff you can do without me. And then tomorrow we'll double up.
Okay.
So that's a good way for you to like take a day or a breather. It is hard. I have to say, whoever the primary parent is who's doing the homeschooling, usually the mom, right? It is hard on the mom. And you have to know that you have to put your own, I hate the word self-care because it sounds so cheesy and buzzwordy, and I don't like that. Like going to the spa and getting a manicure is not going to help you homeschool. Like it might be great, but, and not to negate that you need time to yourself. Like there are days where I'm like, I need a minute I need some time to myself. So that for me looks like maybe exercising, taking a walk, listening or reading a book. Sometimes I'll listen to a book or a podcast, or sometimes I'll read or whatever. And or just like watch trash TV, like for an hour. Like sometimes I just need a minute. And then just making sure that I'm staying connected to people. I run a ministry at my church. I run our women's ministry. So that is separate from homeschooling. That is my thing. I'm in a book club that I love. That's my thing. If I want to go to if book club's on the calendar, it's happening. Like, don't ask me to do anything. I'm going to book club.
Right.
Because it recharges my batteries. And I feel like that's good. I try to make it a priority to spend at least an hour doing something for me. It might be a phone call to a friend. It might be, having lunch in peace. Like, don't ask me for anything right now, because I'm having my time right now. You can do something else and come see me in an hour.
Yeah. Well, that's really,
and I think that's true of stay-at-home moms too. Like when I was a stay-at-home mom, when my kids were little, we had specific times where it was like, hey, I'm not available right now. Don't talk to me unless you're bleeding or someone's hurt. And I don't mean a little bit hurt. I mean like broken arm hurt. Like, don't talk to me.
Yeah. We have to be emergency room level. Well, that's really important. So setting boundaries. So I'm going to kind of tell you everything I've learned from you. Okay. So I've learned so much. Okay. So, I mean, first of all, picking the curriculum among the list of curriculums you described is really interesting. I think is really one of those things that to me seem kind of exciting. It kind of seems like, wow, why can't they do that in a regular standard environment? I'm not quite sure, but yeah. So picking that curriculum and then sort of deciding whether you're the type of person that your next one you mentioned, top of your list, was community. And yes, I believe in community for just almost every aspect of my life. I'm joining the podcast community. I love the tech community. I mean, I like the book club community. So community is always key, because you find like-minded people that you're just going to learn things from, and get some tips, tricks, and there's always someone there with sage advice, and there's always someone who's new, who you can be a mentor to. So community, very much key. And then I think my favorite thing that I love about your just self-awareness is knowing when, one child just doesn't fit into that mold and letting them be who they are. And then, I think absolutely in a homeschool environment, the learning sticks. Because it's hands-on and you're learning in a real world environment. I mean, you're going out there with the chickens and you got to get your chickens.
Listen, I don't have chickens, Lynn.
Oh, you
raised them and gave them away.
I think that's the funniest part is the chickens.
Yeah.
You always get the butterflies, and the butterflies get released. But the chickens give away. If you have chickens in your backyard, it may give away that you're potentially homeschooling.
Yes. I do have a sourdough
and then, of course,
starter
the most
too.
important thing is the homeschooling mother or father, but typically, this is mother. And I'm happy to hear that Florida is very supportive in the homeschooling community. And yes, there has been, a rise across the country, but the person who is in charge of creating this whole entire experience has got to have a moment of peace and watching some, maybe watching some trash TV, because I imagine your head just explodes with all the knowledge you get on a daily basis.
It's funny because sometimes we'll pass something by and we'll see something that we maybe have learned about one of the units, and the kids will be like, "Oh, did you see that? That's a coniferous tree." And I'm like, sure is. Like, oh yeah.
I don't
So,
even know how you remember everything. I mean, I do. It's funny because I try to remember even books we've read like 3 times ago, and sometimes I'll pick them up and then I'll start to read them. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. But it's hard for me to hold all of that. I don't know if my head fits all of it. Maybe I drink too much wine and then it just kind of flows out the other side. So
maybe.
okay, not recommending homeschooler moms to drink during the day,
No,
but
the day
certainly
drinking's frowned upon actually in homeschooling. But I think I guess the number one thing too is like you need a good day planner. You need a planner. Um, I have a planner. It's color coordinated. I'm a little over the top with it. So some people's planners don't look like that, but you need to have a plan of action. What are you teaching? What curriculum are you using? And then you just go through it and you plan out each week, just like a teacher would do. Like, so you're doing planning. I do my planning in the summer, so I know the whole school year before the school year starts. It
well,
just
that's
makes it
another thing
easy.
I thought I saw was that you have to, it's best to kind of plan for the whole year. So what
Yeah.
I would love to have is a picture of your planner. And kind of like oh, look at that. I'm even looking at it. Look at that with all the colors on it. So
There it
a
is.
picture of your planner, and then maybe a I don't know, a community or a co-op flyer or something along those lines, just to give everybody some
Here.
visuals of the things that you have done.
Think I want to say one more thing, which
Sure.
is um, there's statistics on homeschooling that I think that, people are afraid to start because they're like, am I going to mess my kids up? And just statistically, peer-reviewed studies show that 69% of homeschooled students succeed in college and adulthood, which is a much higher number than their counterparts who have institutional formal education somewhere else, like either private or public school. 25% of the homeschool students, and this number is actually going up, have enrolled in a grade above their recommended grade per age level or test into a grade higher. Again, my son is in 9th grade math in 6th grade, and my daughter is in 7th grade reading in 4th grade. Homeschool students score between 80 and 90% in standardized tests, regardless of their parents' level of education. So if you have a high school level education or higher, you can figure it out on how to homeschool. So don't let it be like, oh, I don't have a master's degree, or I don't have a teaching degree. You can still homeschool your kids. There's so many more like options now and resources than there were even 10 years ago. So like
Imagine
just seeing
homeschooling
all that.
before the web. I mean, I don't know how anyone did that. So absolutely, technology has really helped
Yeah.
homeschoolers.
Also, there was an Essence Magazine article from April of 22 that said the highest percentage in homeschoolers, highest increase percentage is among BIPOC families. So specifically Black families, there's a 5-fold increase from previous years of homeschooling. So more and more people of color are deciding to homeschool their families because they're realizing like, this isn't just, I think that there was like a stigma of like, these are like wealthy white families that are homeschooling their children. And that's just not true. Like this is something that is option for people across the board. We have a lot of diversity of families in our co-op and like other co-ops I know. And you can find co-ops. Facebook is I know Facebook's for old people now, as my teenager tells me, but like
Oh,
Facebook's a
no,
great
they're making a
There's
comeback, I think.
tons
Yeah.
of groups on
Yeah.
Facebook. So if you literally just type in homeschooling and your city that you live in, you will find so many groups. There's homeschooling woke groups. There's homeschooling Christian groups. There's homeschooling Muslim groups. There's homeschooling for diverse groups. So you will find your people with the click of a button. Boys score 45% higher in reading tests when educated at home compared to when they are educated in public school. And that is because homeschool moms make their kids read even when they don't want to. Right, Chance? And then finally, 98% of the homeschool educated students engage in at least 5 activities outside of their home every week. So they're not sitting at home twiddling their thumbs, terrified to speak to people. Homeschool people are actually doing a lot more out in the community than their peers that go to a brick and mortar school, whether public or private, because they have the opportunity, they have time. we're out, if we want to go help out at the library reshelving books, we can. If we want to go do community service at noon, we can. So it gives you like this open opportunity to do so many things. But finally, I just want to say, like, if you're thinking about homeschooling, you really have to sit down and like take a check of your heart and decide, like, do I have the time to do this and to dedicate to it? Because ultimately you're the kid's teacher. Even if they go to a co-op, you're their kid's teacher. So you have to decide, is this the right thing for my family? And both parents need to be on board. I think that a big mistake is like for the mom to go, we're going to try this and see. And is dad going to be on board or not? Like, maybe.
No,
if you're not both on board, it's not going to work, because you're always going to have this like little shadow of doubt. And you have to, like, the family support is really important. My husband is 100% on board. And there are days where I'm like, this is so hard. Maybe we should quit. And he's like, no, our kids are thriving. You're doing a great job. He's very supportive about homeschooling, almost to a fault, because sometimes they say, like, they always tell homeschool moms, don't make decisions in January.
Oh,
because
yeah.
That's when it gets hard. And you're like, oh, I still have the rest of the school year to go.
Oh, well, I imagine that's how just teachers
Yeah.
feel in general, right?
Yeah. And then, like, are you willing to make some financial sacrifices if you have to? Like, if you're not already a stay-at-home mom, which I had gone back to work as a private chef, and suddenly I found myself back home again. That's a big thing. And then are your kids going to be on board? And sometimes it takes some work to get your kids there. But then, like, once they've started, they're on board. I ask my kids every year. So we've been homeschooling now for 4 years. And I ask them every year, do you want to go back to public school? Do you want to try private school? Do you want to do something different? Do we need to change it up a little? And every year, without fail, these kids are like, nope, I love homeschooling. I want to stay. I think this is working.
I like to say that sometimes with bad things happening, good outcomes happen. And so I always bring up 2020 as one of those moments of, you had to make the best of it. And I just love that it introduced something to you that you weren't even considering. And then you leaned into it, and then look at all the great outcomes that came out of it. So I just want to thank you again for coming on and describing to somebody who admires you for making this decision. And also, really making anyone who's listening understand that this is a possibility, there's a great support system. And we know that any of the assumptions about homeschoolers in the past are no longer in play anymore. And part of that is technology, but you've got also co-ops and community and giving back to the communities. So I want to thank you so much for making
thanks for
that choice. And I just love to hear how your kids are thriving, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again for coming.